That looks so scary, but I guess it's fitting. Today we are back on Reddit. I am so excited to read this thread. This says, is anyone currently experiencing paranormal activity in their home? Somebody commented, I recently moved into a new house in January and some odd things have happened. Heavy booted footsteps heard on the wooden floors, like stomp, stomp, stomp. Definitely not wood settling sounds. I have a roller door that's on wheels that opens sideways. It's rusty, so it's loud when you open it. I heard its distinct opening and shutting sound, so loud that I ran out of the bedroom to check if somebody had walked in. A friend stayed over while I was getting my previous house tidied up, and they said they kept seeing movements in the periphery of their vision and was creeped out. I hadn't mentioned anything to them, and they asked me if I had seen anything unusual. Things will go missing, and I'll search everywhere. I can't find them, and later on the missing item will be somewhere obvious, like no chance I wouldn't have seen it obvious. Occasionally there's a really gross smell in the bathroom, like something rotten, but only ever at night, and only for an hour or so, and then it's gone. But it does come back other nights. The lady I bought the house from made a weird remark when I told her which room would be the bedroom. She said, oh, you'll have fun in that one. I didn't think much of it at the time. I later found out from her that she had been shoved off the bed in the middle of the night by something when I asked about the history of the house. Never in my life have I had sleep paralysis, and I've had it twice since moving in. Awake and alert in my mind, but cannot move my body. It's so scary. I'm still skeptical, but what the fuck? Especially the walking on floorboards and the door sounds. I really can't explain it. How are you still skeptical? Also, if I was buying a house from someone and they go, ha ha ha, you're gonna have fun, take it back. Give me my money back. I don't care, actually. Somebody else commented, yes, and I am so freaked out. I need someone to talk to, but it's late, so here I am. Tonight, I was in my living room putting in some floor lamps. While doing this, I went to adjust the position of the accent lamps on the right and left of my TV. They are identical accent lamps. They've been there for over a year. I first moved the one on the right toward the TV, went over to the lamp on the left and adjusted it to the same position. When I stepped back to see that they were both even with the TV, the lamp on the right was gone. It was not there. I couldn't process it at first. I got my camera and proceeded to film the living room and then walked the entire house, room to room, closets, garage. There is no second lamp anywhere on my property. I'm all by myself with nobody to talk to. I don't know how to process this. And what is so alarming, the same thing occurred back in 2013 with 4 different items over the course of about a year. I was never in the room when the items disappeared, so this time it's much more in my face, and there isn't any other explanation. This is truly paranormal. I can't explain it any other way. I haven't been drinking. I know I had 2 lamps. I know I had just adjusted one of them. Every time I go to walk back into that room, I get butterflies in my stomach. Like, what's gonna happen when it comes back? All 4 things that disappeared years ago came back, and they came back to the exact same place they had gone missing from, where we had looked for the item over and over, and suddenly it just shows back up. You're freaking me out. I feel like I'm getting flashbacks to when I would use the Ouija board, and this happened a couple of times, and it was never something as huge and insane as a lamp that you had just adjusted that just vanished into thin air. There were a couple of times where we were using the Ouija board, there was a spirit we were talking to pretty consistently. It's a whole thing, it's a long story. But the one I remember so vividly is that I had this studio light for my videos. And I used the studio light every time I filmed, and I had it placed in the same spot every time I was done using it. It wasn't a very big light, it was probably yay big, I don't know, the size of an iPad. And one day it was just gone. Missing. I had no idea where I could have possibly put it because I always put it in the same spot. I looked through my entire apartment, every cabinet, everywhere I could have possibly put that thing. I checked under my bed, I checked places it could have fallen, I checked everywhere. And I had a really small apartment. It was probably 500, 600 square feet. And I had nothing in that apartment because I was broke as shit. It wasn't there. It wasn't in the apartment. One day I came home, I walked into my bedroom, and it was, I'm not kidding, in the middle of the floor, right when you walked into the room. Like, open the door, right there in the middle of the floor. And I live by myself. I was absolutely shook out of my mind because where was it? Where did you take it? Did you just turn it invisible for a little bit? Right in the middle of my floor. That also happened with a pair of sunglasses when Kayla was living with me. If you guys don't know Kayla, again, it's a long story, but my friend was living with me for a couple of months and she had a pair of these red sunglasses. They were hard to miss that were missing. Just randomly. We checked everywhere for them. They were on like a nightstand and we could not find them. And we said out loud, please, please give them back to us. And I'm not kidding. The next time we used the Ouija board, we asked if they knew where the glasses were, and they told us they were behind the dresser. They fell behind the dresser. I don't know. We checked though, and they were there. There's no way either of us could have known that. We were searching for these glasses forever, and I don't even think it was behind the nightstand that they were on. It was like a different dresser. I'm trying to remember because this was so long ago, but we couldn't find them. And we asked the Ouija board if they knew where it was, and they told us. And you guys, I can't. I'm like getting war flashbacks right now. That kind of stuff is so crazy to me. But the lamp, where did the lamp go? It's a big lamp. Where did it go? I could talk about that forever. We're gonna move on. We have lived in our home for 6 years now. And ever since the very first day, weird things have happened constantly. From lights flickering, temperature changes, electronics being activated, to objects moving, audible footsteps, somebody familiar's voice saying your name when they're nowhere even close to the home, shadow people. And it's not just me, but my wife is having the exact same experiences. Her sister and her husband had similar experiences when they came to visit, and we had said nothing about what we encountered. Most notably for me, I work in my garage late into the night, a few times a week, almost every night. I'll get that back of neck sensation of someone else's presence, and like clockwork, random things will just start being tipped over. Cups, tools, anything. Shit moves. We have no rodents, and I have Ring cameras everywhere, which constantly alert me to a person in my house. 50 to 60 times a day. There is literally nothing on the cameras. One thing I did get lucky enough to catch on camera was about a year ago. I was sitting on my couch and I had just set a water bottle down on the coffee table before I sat down. The bottle now being too far to reach. All of a sudden, a loud bang came from the front of the house. In the video, you see me and my dog both sit up quickly and look down the hall, and then boom, the water bottle gets tossed 2 feet in the air by itself. I have the video somewhere on my computer. I'll upload it when I get off work today, but yeah, spooky shit. I don't see that they replied to their comment or uploaded the video, but now I desperately need to see that. Just flung into the air, okay. I moved recently to another house, and I have been experiencing a lot. I'll start with last night. I was sleeping and was awakened by the sound of papers shuffling, so I look over to where the noise is coming from, and I saw a young man. So I moved to get a better look at him, but he was gone. There was not enough time for him to get out of my room. I gathered some things and went to the living room. Before that, something had been tugging on my feet in bed, with me being wide awake. It all started in the first or second week I was here. I tested it to see what it could be by moving in and out of the way, but my other foot got tugged even harder than before. This has happened several nights, scaring me more and more every time. Next thing, I had my knees up while I was reading, and it tugged the covers, but this time, I was terrified and I did not move. I felt like something was under the covers between my legs, touching my privates. I jumped out of bed and went to the living room again. Also, twice in the kitchen, I've heard what I thought was someone behind me, but when I turned around, there was no one there. We brushed past that part really fast. Yeah, that's a freaky fucking ghost. Oh my god, I actually can't even think too much about that one. That just gave me like full body chills. I have gone through so much paranormal stuff in my life, but in recent years, it's been mostly a deceased past love who visits me. 3 nights ago, was touching my cheek. It felt like spider webs. Then I saw something small and black, about the size of a shoe, shoot up from the floor to the ceiling and disappear. It startled me, but I love when he visits. Oh my god! Several months back, I saw a dark gray misty shadow about 3 feet high go across my patio, weaving around furniture. I went to bed and about an hour later had a sleep paralysis nightmare that I was able to wake myself out of. I turned over on my back and there was a girl straddling me. Reminded me of the girl from The Grudge. I just stared at her, blinking. She was perfectly still. I couldn't feel her. I could tell she was waiting for a reaction, which I didn't give her for about 7 or 8 seconds, until she smiled, baring large demon-like teeth. Then I screamed, "Demon!" and started smacking my husband awake. And she disappeared. I'm so sorry. The way that is happening in my brain is so funny. Demon! I called my psychic medium and she told me it was a trickster spirit because I could see it on the patio. It came back to mess with me. She said to salt my house in case something worse came around. Last night I was in a deep sleep and I heard a man's voice that I didn't recognize say, "Hey," in my right ear. And I was immediately wide awake. I realized that my heart was in an arrhythmia that wasn't correcting. I had to cough several times to get it back to a normal rhythm. Whoever that was saved me. Holy shit. That was a lot. That was a lot. And for a second I thought that the ghost saying, "Hey," is the one who put your heart in an arrhythmia. But the fact that he woke you up because... I cannot even process that. That ghost woke you up so you wouldn't, have a heart attack? And how did you do that? But that first paragraph there about, having a past love coming to visit you, I cannot handle that. That makes me want to cry. Last week, I was visited by a ghost kitty. I kept seeing him out of the corner of my eye all day, and he even settled on the other end of the couch from me when I took a break from housework to watch TV. He wasn't a cat that I knew. He was white, maybe with some black patches. Sweet, kind of aloof. My dog didn't even seem to notice his presence, and he hasn't been back since, nor has he visited me before. No idea why he chose to visit, but it was nice having the cat energy around for a while. That's my dream. I'm sorry, if I'm gonna be haunted by anything in this life, it better be a fucking cat. I want to be haunted by a cat. Wait, this is actually crazy. So somebody said I moved into my current place 16 years ago. There were often noises from the kitchen, and sometimes things would fall or be pushed off surfaces. I read somewhere that reacting and getting angry gives it more power and makes it stronger. So I did the opposite. I chose to ignore it. Now, 16 years later, there is hardly any disturbances. In fact, I can hardly remember the last time anything happened. There's just one spot now where I get a feeling of negativity, which I also choose to ignore. I don't even know how you are that nonchalant. I just don't know. Because in my brain, I don't even know if that's the right word, actually, nonchalant. I just saw somebody say that on Instagram. It's been stuck in my head. But I feel like even if I tried to ignore it, the insides of me would just be anxious and scared, and I feel like they would know that. They'd be like, "Yeah, you're not saying anything out loud, but we know you're scared, bitch." And so to just be so calm and to ignore it with every part of you, how do you do that? How do you just not care? I actually do wonder if you even typing about it, even though that was so brief, if you bringing it up at all, I wonder if anything will happen. Yes, all the time. This is a very old house, mid-1800s. My friend bought it with her husband around 2012 and in 2020 rented it to us. In 2021, she asked us to move out. She had bipolar, was going through severe manic psychosis. She moved in alone for a few months, and I didn't know this until about 2 months after she moved in. It's a big house, colonial architecture type, and when we lived there before, there was always things going on. Seeing people out of the corner of my eyes, loud noises, things missing and found in the spot you left it, checked a dozen times. I would think my teenage son flipped his desk chair and go upstairs to find him sleeping. Nothing super scary. That is scary in itself to me, but anyways. August 29th, 2022, my friend's husband came to check in first thing in the morning. She moved out, but he knew she wasn't in her right mind and was doing everything she would allow him to do to still take care of her and be her husband. He found her on the couch unresponsive and not breathing. EMS attempted to help, but she was gone. She died on the couch in the living room after laying out on the trampoline looking at the stars. I got off the phone with her around midnight, and sometime after that, she left her blanket and water bottle on the trampoline, dropped her phone in the yard on the way in, laid down on the couch. It was most likely suicide. Oh my God. We moved back here December 21st, 2022. The same quirky, weird things are happening, but I also saw Sarah in the yard twice. Felt her walking through the woods with me and could see and hear the footsteps in the leaves. And when she wasn't well, she claimed that her husband was coming in the middle of the night and cutting her hair. There were obvious pieces of hair cut. One day a friend was leaving and I walked her out to her car. When I saw my reflection, I noticed a large chunk of my hair had been cut in the front. I have long straight hair, no bangs or layers, and I couldn't tuck this piece behind my ear. It happened 4 times in total. Just the other night, I went into the kitchen in the middle of the night, and went to leave, turned around, and all I could see was green fabric with little flowers. I turned back and went quickly to my room. That is the saddest thing I've ever read in my entire life. Holy fuck. I was thinking this when I read the first paragraph, but she was bipolar and going through a manic episode and moved into a house that had some sort of presence in it. And I feel like any sort of paranormal presence, whether it be like good or bad, I don't know, but they feed off of that. And if you are mentally ill, they are going to feed off of it. She was probably experiencing things that you can't even imagine while being in that house alone. That is actually fucking heartbreaking. That is shattering to find her in that house, most likely suicide. Like, I can't. Like, that's so horrific. I am so incredibly sorry for your loss. Okay, and apparently I messed up because that is the end of that thread. I really thought this was going to be... I thought there were going to be way more stories. I don't know. I'm going to find another thread so the video isn't so short. So I'll be right back. Okay, this next thread says, people whose house is haunted, what is your story? Someone said, a few shorter stories. Our last house, when our daughter was around 2, she was in her room talking. We went in to see what was going on, and she was standing in her crib, looking at the far corner of her room. We asked her what she's doing, and she said she's talking to the man. We asked who, and she pointed to the corner and said, the man. She said a name, but I can't remember what it was, and then she just started talking about something else entirely and acted like it didn't happen. My mother-in-law's house, she says that she has some Civil War soldiers that walk her hallways occasionally. She's not afraid of them, she just feels bad for them. They never bother her or anything in the house. They're just kind of there. They just kind of wander. My sister-in-law's old house, her kids were friends with the neighbor's kid. The neighbors went skiing and apparently they had an accident while skiing and died. Soon after his parents moved from that house, they would see a young boy walking around their house late at night and they swear it's the neighbor's son. And he's lost because his parents moved. I'm gonna kill him. I'm gonna kill the parents. The thought of a ghost child being lost. I can't do that. I grew up in a haunted house. We had this toy car that would move on its own with no batteries in it. I mean, like, move 30 feet and go in circles. And sometimes it would just move for hours. My entire family saw it, and we even had uncles and aunts come over to see it. In that same house, we got the hardwood floors done, and we woke up to these 3 bird-like claw marks all over the floor. My mom bought a plant once from some garage sale. When she brought the plant home, I had a dream about breaking the plant, and in the dream my mom was angry that I broke the plant. When I awoke, my mom said she saw a figure standing beside her bed all night, and the plant had been destroyed. She tossed the plant out, and that figure in the dream never happened again. It was very common to see black shadows in broad daylight. I remember one night when I was like 4, I woke up to 2 giant glowing red eyes inches from my face. Yeah, that house was haunted as fuck. Yup. The haunted plant. The case of the haunted plant. When I was around 11, I would see this tall silhouette of a man. He would usually appear in my room when I tried to sleep. He would stand in between my closet and my room door. I would be blocked in my room, no way to get out. I just had to shut my eyes and fall asleep as fast as I could, which was hard in that circumstance. He didn't really do anything or move. He only watched. I only saw him once here, but one time I was looking at my iPad in the dark while in my playroom. I hear my mother call me for dinner down the hall, so I look up, and there he was, standing right in front of the door of the double door to my playroom. I was scared shitless. All I could do was avoid him as I sprinted out of the left door. I tell my family once I get to the kitchen, and none of them believed me. Needless to say, I never went in there alone at night again. The last time something weird happened in that room was when I was home alone upstairs. I forgot to mention there is a piano that belonged to my grandmother in the playroom. While I was upstairs, I hear the piano start playing. It wasn't a pretty song, but it was like slamming down on the keys. I just had to lay in my bed scared. I still see this man to this day, and maybe I just don't want to believe this is real, but who knows? I don't know, I feel like because they never do anything and they're just kind of watching over you, I kind of feel like they're more of like a protective spirit. But I could be out of my mind saying that, and I'm not a professional. When I was 11, we knew we moved into a haunted house. From the beginning, we knew that something was off. The house was big, probably built in the 40s, had hardwood floors. There were axe marks in the wood floors of the living room. I would have nightmares almost nightly of a man standing outside my window, his face disfigured by burns. He never tried to get in. In my dreams, all he did was stand there, but it was enough to terrify 11-year-old me. Our family would be sitting in the living room, and we would hear someone walking in the hallway. You could track their progress from one end of the hallway to the other, eventually going into the den and disappearing. We would hear someone in the kitchen, moving pots and pans around or whispering. I had shoes with hard soles, loafer type, and my family would constantly yell at me for walking in the hallway with those loud-soled shoes, but it wasn't me. They would come out and I would be sitting on the couch or sleeping. My brother was a baby, and we had one of those wind-up style baby swings for him. And once he fell asleep in the swing, you never wanted to rewind it because it would make such a god-awful noise. But we would sit in the living room with my brother asleep in the swing, and it would just start to swing on its own. There were more instances. Rocking chairs that rocked by themselves. The hot water in the shower would turn on by itself. After I grew up, my kids and I stayed there briefly with my parents. And my children would have the exact same nightmares about the burned person outside the window. About 6 years ago, a gentleman stopped by the house and had a long conversation with my stepmother. He told her that he grew up in this house in the 60s, and that his dad had mental issues and alcoholism, and had tried to set his wife and kids on fire, and ended up burning himself in the process. Holy fuck! Oh my god, to see this horrifying figure of a man your entire childhood, to then have your children see the exact same man, and then have it validated that this really happened and that's a real person, or not a real person, but you know what I mean? No, and I wouldn't be able to and what do you want me to do with this information? I've always had spooky things happen around me, no matter where I live. The activity is relatively light. I can go weeks or months without anything, but every so often something will happen that I can't explain besides the ghost did it. Objects moving, doors closing, a painting falling off a wall at an angle that was not at all natural. The stove turned on by itself when I was standing next to it. A radio also turned on in front of me. When my sister was staying here months ago, she said her daughter's toys were moving around, and one day she came home to all of the bathroom cupboards opened. Sometimes I hear noises floating around my bathroom or my room. One night a while back, I was laying in bed trying to sleep. The house was silent. My door was cracked open, and with no warning, I hear a rush of literal footsteps sprinting down the hall to my room, and then my door hurled open forcefully. No animals or people came in. They were already on my bed. It's been fun, and that's only this particular house. I have more stories from past places that I've lived in. Honestly, I'm not freaked out. I'm fascinated by it. And wish I had more frequent activity. You're insane. Because that door hurling open after hearing footsteps running down the hallway would be it for me. And I never want to experience anything ever again in my life. One night I was woken up around 1 a.m. by a ghostly white hand opening the door to my bedroom. The hand was quite high off the ground, which was odd because my husband wasn't home, and the only other person in my house was my 2-year-old son. I called out to my son, but there was no answer. I got out of bed and left my room, only to see that there was no one in the hallway. I switched on the hallway light and noticed smoke coming from my son's room at the other end of the hall. I rushed over to his room and saw that he was fast asleep and still neatly tucked under his blankets. His bed lamp was on, as usual, and his bedroom window curtains had somehow ended up inside the bed lamp, which was at the top, and the curtains had begun to smolder, which was responsible for the smoke. It looked like it was about to catch fire at any moment. I removed the curtains from the bed lamp and potentially saved our home from burning down and my son from being killed. I still don't know whose hand that was that opened my bedroom door. I like to think that it was a guardian angel, but I spoke with some people at our church and they warned me that there are no guardian angels and it was most likely an evil presence trying to win my favor. The church formed a prayer group to pray for our home to banish whatever malevolent presence was inside of it, and since then we've never had any other incidents. Oh my god. Because my brain also automatically went to that ghost was trying to save your son. It was trying to get your attention so that you would go and check. But another part of me is how did the curtains get there? You know what I mean? Because it's not like they can just float over and catch on fire. And so yeah, what if this presence did that, moved the curtains, created this situation, woke you up just to get on your good side? I don't know. Again, I'm not a professional. I grew up in a haunted house that my family built in the suburbs. No previous owners, so no reason that a spirit would have decided not to move on from anything. And I'm pretty sure we weren't built on some kind of burial ground. I had many spooky and outright strange things happen to me in that house, and some of my friends also experienced strange things, but my parents never did. and tried to explain everything away. My bed shook at night, and I would be too scared to turn away from the wall to see what was shaking it. I had some of the worst and memorable nightmares to this day, over 30 years later. A voice saying something to me after I woke up. I would sleepwalk and walk into our living room with the television turned on to static, similar to the Poltergeist. Although I definitely felt whatever presence was there was malicious in nature, the story I usually tell is more lighthearted than most of the other stuff that happened. When I was in middle school, one of my favorite and easy things to make was a ham and cheese sandwich, heated up in the microwave to melt the cheese. I did this one day and took the plate out of the microwave, and my sandwich was missing a bite. My parents told me I did it and just didn't remember. When we moved out, I was so happy to be away from that place. Supposedly, the next family that moved in had a teenage daughter who was killed in a tragic accident in the street in front of the house. She was ran over accidentally by a friend or her boyfriend. Now I don't like even driving by the house. Oh my god. Okay, that took a turn. We went from like hungry ghost sandwich to like, what? Yeah, I wish we would have stopped at like the ghost took a bite of my ham and cheese. I think that's all I'm gonna read for now. There are a lot more stories in this thread, so maybe we'll revisit this topic soon. If you guys have any paranormal stories that you want to share with me and the community, I will have my subreddit linked down below. But I'm gonna go. I love you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.